So, brothers and sisters, in today's gospel, Christ comes to give us the Our Father. He puts in front of us today the Our Father. The disciples are asking him, Master, teach us how to pray. And Jesus, he tells them, first he warns them against the sin of hypocrisy. And that's why he says, do not be like the hypocrites when they pray, or the pagans, that they are there and they're saying all kinds of words, No, when you pray, you do this. And that's when he puts in front of them the Our Father. This prayer that I believe most of us, we are used to. We've been taught when we were kids. And many times we even say it without even noticing how rich and powerful and deep this prayer truly is. You know that in the primitive church, those first adults to be baptized, the Our Father was a prayer that would come later. It wasn't one of the first things that they would teach them. It was something that would come later. And why? Because here there is something that is, let's say, unique to us Christians, which is different from any other religions that claim the existence of a God, which is the fact of being able to relate to a God who is a Father. It's not only a supreme being that is there, something that is out there that generates or moves or defends, protects, which in all those is true. But to us, through Christ, we have been taught and introduced into a God who is essentially a Father. But that's not so simple. And why is that? Well, because the question here now is, what is a father? Well, what is the relationship that I have to this person called Father? Because what is the image that you have of a father? What is the image that I have of a father? Pope Benedict XVI, actually, he wrote a book, which is one of his books, Jesus of Nazareth. And in that book, he writes something that is quite profound. And it struck me a lot in my spiritual life, because he says that our earthly relationship to our Father here has an impact or a reflection, if you want, to how I deal with God as being a father. It's quite deep because it makes sense. As I was saying before, what is the image that I have of a father? Well, I have to look at my relationship with my father first. What is it that is a father for me? I don't know. Maybe my father was something or someone very harsh for whatever reason, in his character, in his personality. Perhaps my father was someone very demanding. Perhaps my father was someone, I don't know, perhaps very liberal that allowed me to do whatever I want. Perhaps my father was someone who was overprotecting me from everything and everyone. Or perhaps my father was not there, was never there. I don't even have this figure of a father, because for whatever reason, circumstances in my history, I don't have a figure of a father. So that, according to what Pope Benedict says, has an impact to how I look at God. Because it's true. Imagine if the image of a father that I have is someone who is very harsh, let's say, who is always correcting me, that in his whatever ways would like me to be perfect or flawless, well, guess what? I will look at God in that same manner. And then we apply that unconsciously to our spiritual life. That's why we have to be perfect, right? We cannot sin. We have to strive and pray and do all kinds of things in order to be perfect. And we think that God is there, right? Ready to punish us. I remember my grandmother used to say, oh, don't do that because God is going to punish you. And that's not true. Or perhaps I never had my father there. And the relationship that I have of a father is someone who has never been there. So unconsciously, we also apply that to God as someone who's not there. So that's why God has to help us to reconcile first with our earthly father. And that's beautiful. Pope Benedict says that all of us, before entering into a relationship profoundly with God, and that's what prayer is all about. Prayer is about a relationship. right? I say usually it's good. You want to go and say the rosary, that's very good. You want to go to the Blessed Sacrament, it is very good. That's very good. But prayer ultimately is a relationship, right? That's why we can always say all kinds of things. But if there is no relationship there, prayer becomes somewhat empty. So God, in his mercy, he has to have this work with us. That is to reconcile us first with our earthly father. And that's pretty profound, huh? Because also, brothers and sisters, we have another challenge, if you want, to see God as a father. Because someone in history, which is the devil, has convinced us that God is not a father. And we can go back to Adam and Eve. Right? Don't you see that God is limiting you? Don't you see how can God be a father? And and this premise that God cannot be a father is always there. Usually they say that after the Holocaust, no one else could believe that God exists, because how can God exist if he allows so many evil in the world, right? So many sufferings, so the pandemic and many other things and if he exists, he cannot be a father, because a father will never do that. And if it is to exist and to allow all that, so rather believe that God does not exist and then I'm God, which is what Nietzsche says in his book, Thus Speaks Zarathustra, right? God is dead. And if God is dead, guess what? Now we are doomed, because now you have to be God. And that's how you and I, we suffer when we take the place of God as a father. That's why in order first to have God as a father, first we have to learn how to be children, right? That is to trust, to see that he's there, that he's merciful, that he cares for us. And slowly, that's why we Catholics, we Christians, we are not like our brothers Protestant, right? Our faith is something that for us is gradually, something that happens slowly. It's like in the gospel last Sunday. This grain of wheat has to grow, has to develop. There is a process there. And that's how the spiritual life works as well. And God is doing all that for us. So, courage. This is something that for sure the Lord is doing. He is doing this already with you in a way or another. So that one day we may truly be able to call him Father. But not only call him, but to be there as a child that knows that my Father in heaven is there, cares for me. He knows me, and he's always there to have me with him. That's why Christianity is always a relationship that Christ himself taught us to have, that he showed to us between him and his Father. Very good. Let us ask the Lord to give us this grace to be able to be with him as his children and to be able to call him Father. May God bless you all.